Welcome, Babji. Can you see us? Oh, yeah, well, you've got the two Shekhawats in front of you. Okay. So I'll introduce the panelists one by one, and since this has become a Rajasthan-centric evening, I will just very briefly tell you a few things about Rajasthan which you people think you know but don't necessarily know. Rajasthan is roughly the shape of a diamond, if you look at the map of Rajasthan, and a diamond it really is. It was in 1949 that Rajasthan was formed after considering many names for it. There was Rajwada, the other name was, what is the other name? Rajputana. And eventually they decided, sorry? Yeah. No, but there were other names. Rajwada was also considered, I don't know, considering what all. But then eventually it settled for Rajasthan. It has a great romance around it, and the cliches of Rajasthan are that they always show a few sand dunes and camels. But Rajasthan is much more than that, and it is a place of great hardship. And the word Marusthal, which is land of death, because if you are, if you've seen Lawrence of Arabia, when you're dying of thirst and you can't find any water anywhere, and you see an oasis and it is, it's actually not any water and so on, that the romance of it fades very fast. So what did happen was that many of the states were named with their traditional names, were with Maru in the beginning, from the desert. So you have Marwar, Mewar, Mard, which is Jaisalmer, Mewat, which is Alwar, and Merwada, which was the Principality of Ajmer. Now even all of us Indians get confused about all these names, so the British were even more confused. So what they decided was that they should name all these states, these Rajwadas, after their capitals. So they started calling them Jaipur, Jodhpur, Udaipur, and so on. And when they corresponded with the rulers, they would often write Dear Bikaner, because the whole complexity of the name and who was the ruler at that point. And the other interesting thing is, because genealogies are very important in Rajasthan, there are a few kinds of people. There are Suryavanshis who claim descent from the sun, the Chandravanshis who claim descent from the moon, and there are the Agnivanshis who claim descent from a fire pit. But there is also the Aryans, which are Bharatpur and Dholpur, which are the Jats, and there is one Afghan state which is in these ruling states of the gun salute states, which was Tonk. And when you asked them of their ancestry, they said we are Pindaris. But the word Pindari, curiously, came from Marathi, and the word Pendare meant looter. So because they set themselves up as looters, so they claimed descent as But history has very short memory, because the present layers over it. So what stays through past history and through the present time is posterity. So this evening we have with us, three very good examples from Rajasthan of posterity and what will remain of heritage in the future. Let me begin with Maharaja Gat Singh Ji of Jodhpur. Oh, you want to see me too? Yes. Oh, I don't know where the camera is. Okay. But as long as you hear me, it's all right, no? I can hear you. Okay, all right. Yeah. It could have come in, yeah. Can you see Randhir? Oh, he can't see anybody. Okay. Okay. No. So you've got Veer, Vijay and Randhir on the stage. And let's see, they're trying if that will happen, yes. Okay, so now to you, Babji. Your lineage goes back to the 39th generation of Rao Siaji, which is absolutely formidable. And there was, the circumstances made you Maharaja at the age of 4 when you lost your father. And there's not many people who sit on the throne at 4 and are addressed as Bapji, meaning father of the whole region of Marwar. And there is a poem of Wordsworth which says, the child is father of man. So you, in that sense, represented that. And what the question to you is that when did this dawn on you that you were, a 4-year-old child doesn't realize this, that you were Maharaja and that you were father of Marwar, and did this in any way make you self-conscious?
I think it really gradually dawned on me, but if there's any specific time, I think it was the tutoring I got, the conditioning I have received from my mother, my grandmother, and other elders. Just before I went to England, when I was 8, that they all married some children and not come back. And so I was a tutor, that I had a very big responsibility and connection with the people of Marwar as a land, and that is something that will bind me to Marwar and Jodhpur, and come back and play the role, the hereditary role, which was there for the Maharajas. But of course, there was no power. I still didn't officially a title then. But on my return, I happened to be just in the same time when the red carpet was pulled from our feet. So I returned in September and November 1971, the amendment was passed. Yes, that's right.
No, but you know, when I was writing a book on the corporate history of the Tatas, and Mr. Ratan Tata said to me that he was burdened with the name Tata. And when he went to school, he couldn't hide his name. So when a limousine would drop him at the school, he would get off at the corner and walk to the school because he didn't want to be noticed. But for you, it's even more difficult because you were born in the world's biggest Art Deco palace, so you couldn't hide. So what was your...
So basically, I grew with it because I was there. And that's one of the reasons why my mother very brave was sent me abroad. And in fact, when I came back, about November, so I remember the date very distinctly, November 70, I had a tremendous welcome from the people.
Yes, it took you 7 hours from the railway station to get to the palace because the people welcomed you. 12 hours, gosh, can you imagine?
They arrived spot on at noon in Jodhpur. And like in the old days, I was in this room. The saloon had been sent ready to pick me up. We had the privileges then. And it stopped. Then on, and they used to practice in their Jodhpur railways was very famous for that. On the red carpet, and I got off. And there was no place to walk. The whole place was full inside, outside, everywhere. And they wanted me to go to the old city. That's why it took so long. We went to the winding streets in the old city, then up to the fort to pay my respect to the Tamil Mata, our East Devi. And from there I went to the palace where my grandmother lived and reached her. And by the time I got back to Mandawa and to my mother, it was 12 in the night.
Yes, we also acknowledge.
So that is something that is very awe-inspiring. It was, as you say, the moment was almost frightening to see that kind of outpouring. It was good learning at the same time. And I began to think that what kind of expectations I have for me. And what can I do? Nothing. But at the same time I thought that they don't even know me. They know the family, they know what my grandmother did, they know what my father did, and he stood for the relation, and one rural name, and the family legacy. And at the same time, it gave me a lot of courage and strength that the people who were with me, with the family, when the whole country was going through this turmoil, and painting us to be bad boys. And
but that was politics of the moment, you know. I'll come back to you, how you then played a very important role in making Jodhpur a heritage city, because a person became the city. I'll move to the other speakers, and then we will ask a few common questions. I now come to Randhir Vikram Singh of Mandawa, who is the president of the Indian Heritage Hotels Association, and Babji is our president emeritus. So I had the fortune or the destiny of arriving in Navalgarh with your cousin Sunny Singh of Navalgarh, and then discovering these extraordinary frescoes. And I arrived later again with Francis, and we started to work on this book. So when I did research, and those days I used to see a lot of the Maharaja of Jaipur also. So in the history books, the Shekhawats, of which both Vijay Singh of Dunlod and your grandfather Randhir Thakur Jai Singh ji said, you know, to us that you people come here so often, I think you are also Shekhawats. So I can call myself half a Shekhawat, having spent 7 years roaming around. So I want to say a few unkind historical things about the Shekhawats. The story of Shekhawati is that, you know, in 1471, Rao Shekhaji declared his independence from Jaipur. They were actually under Jaipur at one point. And then 500 Sunni Pathans who were discontented decided to go from Gujarat because they didn't want to stay any longer with the Sultan. And they were passing through Shekhawati, and Rao Shekhaji, who was a vassal of the Jaipurs, asked them to stay on. And he offered them 12 villages which are called Bara Kotri. And then when they had to offer their allegiance to Jaipur, they decided that they didn't need to do it anymore because they had become military very powerful. So they defeated Jaipur, and Jaipur couldn't believe this. They said, how can the Shekhawats, you know, who are our country cousins or lesser cousins, defeat us? So they sent a second army, and they lost a second time. So then they decided to brand them as bad boys because they had challenged the royals. And the problems in Shekhawati began in 1650. There's a place called Udaipur Vati in Shekhawati, and there was a ruler called Todar Mal, whose younger son murdered his elder brother because he wanted to be a ruler. So he was very saddened, and he said, this whole nonsense of the elder brother getting everything, so the law of primogeniture should be abolished, and that every brother should get an equal share. This was in 1650. So you can imagine 100 years down the line and 200 years down the line, how many brothers and grandchildren, etc., the lands got divided. And then when you have small pieces of land and everybody thinks they're equal because they're brothers and they have common blood, so it became a land which was in war with itself all the time. And historians called them a rowdy people, and the British also found that because they were the Shekhawats were very good warriors, that they were recalcitrant and they always opposed authority. So Jaipur went to the extent of saying that the Shekhawats would not be allowed to come into the city of Jaipur with their cannons. So the homes of the Shekhawats were just outside the walled city of Jaipur because they were a serious threat. But the Shekhawats were very clever, as you know. They carried the wheel of a cannon as a bullock cart wheel, and then they carried the different parts, assembled them, and then did bomb Jaipur. So as president of the Heritage Hotels Association, Randhir, we just had a fantastic meeting at Tijara. First, you can tell us about the journey of how Shekhawati became a destination, and what were the learnings that everybody had, because there was a very active participation, everybody was there, and we talked about how heritage tourism is the real thing that people want to travel for. If you have a choice between a hotel or a heritage hotel, the chances are that especially the foreigners, and now Indians also, have a huge desire to go and see their own heritage.
Thank you, Aman. Thank you, everybody. What happened, we're talking way back in 1980 when we started Castle Mandawa in Mandawa, which is about 4.5 hours drive from Daruheda and about 3 hours drive from Jaipur. Aman and Francis were doing their book, The Painted Walls of Shekhawati. And before that, nobody knew about this rich cultural heritage which existed in this part of the world. Because you have Naples and Pompeii and some other places where you have some villas which are painted. But in Shekhawati, there are over 35 towns, about 2,000 houses which are painted. And this is a unique example, and this was somewhere around 1890 to 1930, something like that, was the time when all these paintings were done. So they're not very important in India's history otherwise. But this is a very important historic thing, that you have paintings in this large scale. Instead of doing whitewash, they used to do paintings. So this is a unique example, and when Francis and Aman used to be there, so they used to come and stay with us, because that's why my younger brother had invited them, why don't you come and stay here, because those days you couldn't even get food in Shekhawati.
There were no restaurants anywhere. Yes.
There's nothing, there's only mithai or samosas or kachoris could be bought. No food was there. And in fact, so that was 1977, 78, 79. And with Francis and Aman's this thing, we did our first group in 1979, December, when Dominic Lepere had just finished his book, The Freedom at Midnight. And Francis and Aman brought them there, and they were given a traditional welcome in Mandawa. And then they all wrote about Mandawa, and that is how the heritage tourism actually started in a very big way. Although some of our palaces like the Maharaja Jodhpur's palace, Jaipur palace, Udaipur, they were already there existing. Palace tourism was there. But otherwise heritage tourism was not there in a big way. So in 1980 is when people started coming in a big way to the Shekhawati region, and then it spread to the rest of the country. Today we have over 200 heritage hotels across the country in every state. Rajasthan dominates the tourism sector. But this is how we started heritage tourism. Heritage tourism is a completely different ball game, because you have a different experience. You go and stay in somebody's house, learn the culture, see what the whole thing is all about, and that was what people really relished. And there are different sizes, different types of heritage properties. Cuisine is an important part of that. You have different cuisines when you go to different parts of Rajasthan or India. And that has become the unique selling point today. The 5-star hotels across the world are there. But to go back into time, stay in these, and have the flavor of the bygone era is something which is something unique for most of the tourists who come to India. And today, even Indians, after COVID, you find a lot of Indians wanting to go and stay in the heritage hotels. And that's become the new fad. And now, a lot of common this thing, we want to go and, the whole family wants to come and stay in one of these heritage properties. So that is how it started off.
Actually, the one big learning from that group, they were all the nobility of Europe. They were received by the Maharaja of Jaipur in Jaipur and the Maharaja of Bikaner in Bikaner. And Mandawa comes in between, so they had only a lunch and a visit of the frescoes. And when they went back, and they said that the one strong memory that they had was of Shekhawati. So I was not in tourism at that point. I was only a writer of a book. That was my first book, and I went on to do 18 after that. So the learning was that people travel to see the difference. So even though most of you who are here, represent hotels, but the idea is not to make the standard boring hotel, that the interior should be different, the experience should be different, because that is what people remember. So when that lunch happened, the first lunch at Mandawa, it was winter, it was after the beating of the retreat, they drove down, and on the terrace they had put up a long table, and as we sat down to eat, there come these eagles to swoop at the food. So they got their old retainers who were wearing these wonderful red bagal bandis, who stood behind us on both sides with waving these spears. So it was like a staged medieval lunch, and people have such a strong memory of that. So they went back and said, Mandawa, and I then met Mr. Vicky Oberoi at a dinner, and he said to me, what is this place, Mandawa? Everybody I meet is either going there or coming back from there. So he went running to Mandawa, and he negotiated a part of that the fort so to make it, but then realized that it was not for the traditional hoteliers to do what can be done by the people who are here, because they have a connect, they have the wherewithal, the peculiarity, and even as palaces go, when you look at palaces in Europe, there is a little more standard. But of course, yes, please.
To add to what Randhir said, the origins of the Indian culture, because when we went on the we started it ourselves, and I was very happy with getting a 5-star category.
Which year was that?
That was 1872.
Okay.
And we owned the country then and then we around. So then I thought that we should have a separate category. And I kept having with the
Yes.
And didn't get the response. And over a period, we were able to upgrade the ground and get our 5-star classification and later on 5-star rank. But there's still this aspect of heritage hotels. And since all these, like Mandawa and King's Town, they were all pioneers. And we formed a small group of 10 people. They are Mandawa, and it was in and they gave me the president. And we continued to do this. Trying to get these smaller properties, smaller parcels, already into our pesticide. Because they, as you said and you said, they have kinds of lifestyle and heritage. And to find it when other India we understood, and we got our classification. And we got it into the pesticide. And that thing started to change.
No, that was a fantastic and pioneering initiative, and absolutely. But how much more work needs to be done, if you are talking, since we are talking to, sorry? Yes, 200 members. But, no, just to put, because people are here from different parts of India, to put this to scale, Rajasthan is roughly the size of France. And France has a population of about 70 billion people, but it gets 92 million tourists. So actually, the kind of targets which we're talking about, Rajasthan, if it got 92 million tourists, it would be unbelievable. And since we are talking Shekhawati, Shekhawati is the size of the Loire Valley in France, where they have all those chateaus, and that's the more Rajput area of Rajasthan. They get 14 million tourists in the valley of the Loire in France. And we are talking of national figures of 4 and 6 or whatever. Before I forget, I should now come to Veer Vijay Singh, and then we'll talk about a few common points. Veer Vijay Singh is a unique individual. He is from the family of Dundlod in Shekhawati. They were actually the first to set up a hotel, and curiously enough, living in Delhi and meeting the many people that one does, I was very surprised when I went there to photograph this place, that I discovered, now that when we spoke to each other, that his grandfather was this wonderful gentleman called Harnath Singh Ji, who had written a book on Shekhawati. So for the writing of my book, I had consulted that book because one of his maternal grandchildren was at college with me. And later I was to meet Veer Vijay Singh's father, who was a kind of peacetime army man, if I might say, because he didn't really fight any active battles. But the unique thing about him is that his mother was associated for 40 years with Maharani Gayatri Devi. And in his lineage, there is a Marwar connection, because his grandmother was the daughter of Sir P, who was so important for Jodhpur. He was thrice the Prime Minister of Jodhpur, and to his credit are the Jodhpurs which the Rajputs wear, on their weddings and also for polo, because he had gone for the coronation in England, and his bag had got lost. So they got Savile tailors to try and all the ladies got together, and they produced this wonderful Jodhpur, which has now become a fashion. So that is to your to Sir P's credit. I'd like you to, and besides that, Maharana Pratap had a younger brother, and Veer Vijay also descends from that. So he's Marwar, Mewar, and has a strong Jaipur connection because of his Shekhawat. Would you tell us some more about your lineage and then about
Thank
Taj?
you so much, Aman Ji. I mean, you're a great historian. I think this is more of a storytelling session of ours than the PR Rakhi was doing. But that's what I think Aman Ji is a historian, and that's what he's the best about. Yes, I do wear 2 caps, so I do have a lineage, and I do have a fort in Dundlod, which was one of the first heritage hotels done by my uncle Rajveer Singh Ji. And but I, of course, while people were promoting heritage, I got into the corporate world, and I've been, after my studies, I've been nearly 50 years in this industry. Dundlod, of course, was one of the first, because Rajveer Singh Ji, my uncle, was first travel agent of Rajasthan. And he started getting groups, and so he promoted Dundlod.
Peacock Travels and
Yes.
Mayur Travels. Yes.
Mayur Travels and Peacock Travels. And that's how I think we started first, but we, I think, did not do as well as Mandawa and many other places like Samod and other places.
Yeah.
But I think, yes, my if I may say so, my contribution went towards also some way in promoting heritage hotels.
No, and much more than that, actually, because what would be interesting for people to know is, how when Rambagh Palace was made into the first hotel in the 70s, Maharaja Man Singh, who was the husband of Gayatri Devi, he was actually ridiculed by the royal. They said, you're such a rich man, why do you need to make your palace into a hotel? Because he had sent off a whole railway carriage full of gold coins and things to Bombay to be kept in the Reserve Bank. So he was a visionary. And Gayatri Devi ji told me that when they opened the hotel, of course, people said, oh, they made a hotel. It was like a scandal. And she said, she wanted to put up a good show, so she'd put onyx ashtrays. And she realized that within a month or so, they had all vanished. So they had to make the transition from, keeping a stylish home and saying, this is Jaipur Palace, to that commercial thing. Tell us.
Yes, so just to say that the Taj Group has played a very important role also in promotion of heritage. And, I don't forget the Taj. You can take me out of the Taj, but, you can't. I'm very much, still the Taj is very much in me. So, late His Highness Man Singh Ji of Jaipur moved from City Palace much earlier in 40s and came to Rambagh Palace. And then he decided that why should we live in such a large palace, and he moved to the Raj Mahal Palace, which was much smaller. And the Rambagh became a palace hotel in late 60s. Mr. Kirkar had taken Taj Bombay over in 60s, and it was known as a white elephant of the Tatas. And he built the towers in Bombay. And to market it, he asked Camellia Punjabi to go to America. That time you didn't have faxes and all that, so you had to go personally and meet. You had telexes and teleprinters. She went to America and she asked those tourists that why would you, and she asked the travel agents, why would you come to India? And they said that there are two things that really attract us to come to India. One is, of course, the beaches of India, because you had a large coastline. But second is that she said, I remember a picture of Jacqueline Kennedy being received by Maharani Gayatri Devi. Yeah. Two most beautiful women, very, very independent women, smart women, also in a polo match in Jaipur. Yeah. And they said, we would love to know about the royalties of Rajasthan and the royalties of India. And so when she came back and said that to Mr. Kirkar, Mr. J.R.D. Tata, Mr. Kirkar and Ms. Punjabi met the rulers, and that's how the Rambagh Palace was given in 70s to the Taj. Also the Lake Palace came to the Taj. And already His Highness has mentioned Jodhpur was already running as a palace hotel. So these were properties which converted into heritage palace hotels. We ensured, Mrs. Kirkar ensured that they architecturally, anything that was added never was compromised. And we encouraged the local cuisine, the culture, the traditions, the music in all these palaces. And finally, of course, the Falaknuma Palace, which happened recently.
No, that is your name is associated with the Falaknuma Palace, which was a kind of Parda Palace. It was closed, and it was, so when he got involved with it, he tells about listing 6,000 items in the inventory.
Yes, so when we took over the palaces in 1996, there were 5 palaces, Falaknuma, Chaw Mohalla, King Koti, Nazri Bagh and Chiran Palace of the Nizam. And he wanted the Taj to take over these palaces. So I was there in Banjara, Hyderabad, and we took over these palaces on one night. And we did an inventory in Falaknuma, and there were more than 5,000-6,000 pieces. We got a Salar Jung director to come and do the inventory. And these were items which were all art and objects which the Nizam himself had no idea about. So we photographed them, numbered them, and did a proper inventory.
They're going to show a video, Babji, which you will see on your screen, because they had prepared some videos about Shekhawati and Falaknuma and so on. So you'll get to see it on a screen if you have it. But you know the properties anyway. Yes. Yes, sorry. Go ahead. No, you can continue talking because that will be your background. So we save some time.
Okay. So, I mean, yes, we got a chance of doing that in Falaknuma. In 96, we were too early. I think in Hyderabad, no foreigners came in. And so we waited. Only sometime in 2008, we started, the Taj started restoring it with the help of Princess Ezra and HES the Nizam. And of course, it's a great story because today Falaknuma is a great property with an average room rate of more than 55,000 rupees. And I think they are not reaching 100 crores.
Sound you can make less. Yeah. Umaid Bhavan Palace cost 90 lakh rupees to make in 1930s. This was the residence of the richest man in the world at that time. Now a hotel doesn't give you this ambience. That is the beauty of all this. Thank you for that, for physically taking you on this little journey. Maybe we could arrange a conference in one of the heritage hotels so you get to sample the real thing. It would be nice to do it in good weather. So can I just ask Bapji a question? COVID was a big learning for everybody in the hotel industry. For you at Umaid Bhavan Palace, which used to see mainly foreigners at one point, what is the big learning?
Actually, it's a couple of days. We actually on the and COVID is the us as the travel because as soon as they were able to travel, there was because they were very good and he was instructed. And so witness was backed off the race. So on a small scale, of course, in reach. But there was running on back the race for these diamonds and blue and black. So this is a great learning for us. And also, a lot of people who travel abroad were not able to travel abroad.
And they discovered India, yes.
Yes. And that is the new concept, and we hope to take it in the market.
I think that the Indian traveler also evolved because they used to, some hotels used to say we only want foreigners because Indians used to be very jungly and eat food on their beds and ask for too much attention. So I think the two things happened simultaneously, that when the Indians discovered India and their heritage hotels or hotels like these, they also learnt little bit more manners and style so that they were not awkward in these places and these places were not awkward for them. So it's very interesting how time goes in a full cycle, because the Umaid Bhavan Palace was made by Bapji's grandfather as a famine relief project. And then, there were a lot of upheavals and changes in history, and it is perhaps poetic justice that the palace goes back to the people, because otherwise it would have been a preserve which may have been out of sync with the times. That was wonderful for that. And for the Shekhawats, I think that it still remains such a unique place that we all should put our energies together. It's next to Delhi, and try and make it like the Loire Valley and get more tourists than the whole of India gets. And what is it, this is the question to all the three of you, that the attitudinal change of the government in dealing with the royals and nobles and to tourism, do you see that some changes happen? Do they realize that that you're wanted as much for putting up a good front, like the Maharaja of Air India, what it did in the world? So what is your take today? Babji, maybe you can answer first. Do you see any attitudinal change?
Should I say something?
Can you hear me, Babji? No, sorry, I was saying, what is the attitudinal? Yes.
Rajasthan tourism brokers do not even show us on that book. None of the palaces.
Yeah, I know.
They come out, Mandawa, okay? And that is what that is about.
Yeah.
They hosted the G20 in our in Jodhpur and others. So they think that
No, there's a change.
this private is not good.
Absolutely. Yes, that we and they has gone, that we are, looking up to them. That's lovely. On this very positive note, I think the first bell is rung. Veer, Vijay, do you want to say anything also? Both of you also.
I just want to say that, yes, what happened immediately after COVID, started with maybe Rajasthan government, which really realized that heritage tourism needs a special benefits. And in fact, even tourism for that matter, the benefits which have been flown out for Rajasthan, as for example, the industrial policy which was accepted, where you get a park discount of about 30% in your power bills, and so many other things, taxations. In fact, that will be now followed by other states also. So there has been a realization after COVID that tourism is an important segment as far as
and that the government benefits from it, gets
and
so
government
many
is
taxes.
benefiting out of it.
And Vijay.
Well, I'll just add that the heritage tourism really started in 1970s when the late Prime Minister removed, the previous and privileges, and so it became a very right thing to do to convert these beautiful palaces and open the doors for people to come and see. But today, of course, it's a very important part of the tourism in India. Randhir, as he just mentioned, is the president of the Heritage Hotels. I'm nowadays spending a lot of time in Rajasthan. I see that Rajasthan tourism, the government is giving a lot of recognition to heritage tourism in terms of the licenses, in terms of the fee structure of the bar licenses, in terms of recognizing hotel industry as an industry. I see a lot of improvements that happening
You wear
today.
two hats. You represent both, royalty and the professionals. So on this happy note that if the government and the private sector want to put their best foot forward, there is no stopping India, and the figures that we are dreaming of will happen. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Babji. Now you're getting some gift which will be sent to you, because I think Randhir will carry. You're getting some good coffees and other things. Which is? With Vijay? We can't hear you.
That's Veer's uncle. Ranveer.
Randhir Singh?
Rajveer.
Rajveer, Randhir. Right. Yes. But then if you are talking about Shekhawat, there was Bhairav Singh Ji Shekhawat, who was also responsible, because, I had gone to see him once and he said, we don't have any money to pay our officers. So I said, but you've got so many properties, why don't you lease them or, auction them? And that's how this whole thing started with Tijara, because, 27... So Bhairav Singh Ji is also responsible because he was conscious of this fact that heritage tourism would play a part. Come, I think. Bhuvnesh. Thank you.